Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into the fascinating world of AI? Last time, we explored some critical topics about the role of AI in our fight against climate change. We talked about how data and AI can be used to predict, mitigate, and adapt to the impacts of climate change.
That's right. We also delved into the potential of AI in agriculture, how it can optimize resources, enhance productivity, and support sustainable farming practices. But we also highlighted a serious concern. If left unchecked, AI's energy consumption and resource demands could actually accelerate climate change.
It was a fascinating discussion, emphasizing that while AI holds immense promise, we must ensure its development is sustainable and aligned with global environmental goals.
Today, we're shifting gears to dive into the world of blockchain technology. Specifically, we'll explore how AI is enhancing blockchain applications, the advantages of decentralized systems for financial transactions, and the basics of blockchain architecture.
We'll also talk about smart contracts, how they work, and two significant real-world applications for blockchains that are transforming industries.
And guiding us through this journey is The Fourth Industrial Revolution and 100 Years of AI, the insightful book by Dr. Alok Agarwal. It's a deep dive into both the history and the future of AI, offering valuable perspectives on its evolving role in shaping our world.
Let's jump right in and talk about how AI can supercharge blockchain. It's fascinating how the story begins with the 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse. Who would have thought a financial disaster like that would pave the way for blockchain technology?
Right? The collapse wasn't just about financial losses. It exposed a massive flaw in centralized systems, what the book calls a single point of failure. When one critical element collapses, the whole system goes down with it.
Exactly. The ripple effects were immense. But Dr. Alok suggests that decentralization, especially in finance, could prevent such disasters. How does that even work when we're so used to banks and central authorities controlling the flow?
It flips the script. Decentralized systems work on a distributed ledger, where all participants share the same transaction data. Transactions happen directly between peers, without a middleman.
That sounds promising, but doesn't the lack of a central authority invite chaos? Who enforces the rules?
That's where community consensus and cryptographic security come in. Transactions are validated by the majority of the network before being added to the ledger. This creates an incredibly fraud-resistant system. Cryptographic algorithms essentially seal each transaction, making it almost impossible to tamper with.
So back to the Lehman Brothers collapse. Could a decentralized system have softened the blow?
Potentially, yes. If their assets had been spread across a decentralized network instead of concentrated in one place, the ripple effect wouldn't have been as catastrophic. The system would have been more resilient to failure.
Decentralization does seem to offer huge advantages, and blockchain is the backbone of this system, right?
Exactly. Blockchain is a distributed ledger stored across a network of computers. Each block in the chain contains transaction records, and once it's added, it can't be altered. This makes the system transparent and secure.
So, Bitcoin was the first real-world application of blockchain, wasn't it?
Yes. Shortly after the Lehman collapse, Satoshi Nakamoto released the Bitcoin white paper, almost as a direct response to the vulnerabilities of centralized systems. Bitcoin proved that blockchain technology could work in practice, laying the groundwork for countless other applications.
That's incredible. Blockchain seems to have the potential to reshape not just finance, this fact, but so many other industries.
Absolutely. Bitcoin demonstrated how blockchain could enable secure and decentralized financial transactions. But what's even more remarkable is that blockchain's potential goes far beyond cryptocurrency.
Beyond money? Tell me more.
This is where smart contracts come in. These self-executing agreements, written in code and stored on the blockchain, automatically enforce the terms when specific conditions are met. This opens up possibilities for applications like streamlining supply chains, enabling secure voting systems, verifying digital identities, and even creating decentralized art marketplaces.
That's a huge range of applications, but where does AI fit into this picture?
AI and blockchain complement each other in transformative ways. AI can analyze the massive amounts of data stored on blockchains, identify patterns, and detect risks or anomalies, enhancing security and efficiency.
And blockchain, in turn, provides a secure and transparent platform for AI systems to operate on.
Exactly. Together, they create systems where AI algorithms operate on decentralized platforms, making decisions that are transparent and auditable. This convergence could revolutionize areas like finance, healthcare, and even governance.
Fascinating. Let's explore some practical examples of this fusion.
Sure, take supply chains, for instance. Global supply chains are incredibly complex, with countless moving parts. Blockchain can create an immutable record of every step in the process, from raw materials to the final product. Adding AI allows for optimizing logistics, predicting disruptions, and combating counterfeiting.
That's a game changer for businesses. But what about individuals?
One exciting area is digital identity. Imagine having full control over your digital identity, securely stored on a blockchain. AI-powered verification could enable seamless, secure interactions, whether for online transactions or accessing healthcare records, without relying on centralized databases prone to breaches.
That sounds empowering. But what about traditional institutions like banks and governments? How do they fit into this decentralized future?
That's a crucial question. Blockchain and AI could lead to a world where people have greater control over their data and finances. While this is promising, it also raises challenges like regulatory concerns and potential misuse of these technologies.
Like with any innovation, there are both incredible opportunities and significant risks.
Absolutely. And we're only scratching the surface. Imagine data marketplaces where people could securely sell or share their data. AI-driven healthcare systems that personalize treatments or predict outbreaks, and decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, making decisions through algorithms and community consensus.
DAOs? That sounds like science fiction.
It may sound futuristic, but they're closer than you think.
Really?
Picture organizations that operate entirely through smart contracts and AI, with no need for human intervention. This could revolutionize everything from corporate governance to social activism.
So the possibilities really are endless. It's almost overwhelming. We're stepping into uncharted territory.
That's the exciting part. We're on the cusp of a new technological era, but we need to think carefully about the ethical and societal implications.
Absolutely. So, what's the key takeaway so far?
The most important thing to remember is that we're just getting started. Blockchain, AI, and the Internet of Things are in their early stages, and their convergence could lead to innovations we can't yet imagine. It's a rapidly evolving field that requires continuous learning and adaptation.
Well said. We've seen how decentralized systems and blockchain can reshape industries, but it also raises important questions. Are there any potential downsides?
Yes, while promising, decentralized technologies also bring challenges, like regulatory uncertainty. Governments are still figuring out how to handle this evolving space.
Regulating something designed to be decentralized seems incredibly complex.
Exactly. And then there's the risk of misuse. The very decentralization that makes these systems powerful can also attract illicit activities, like money laundering or fraud.
Powerful tools can always be used for both good and bad.
Correct.
But what about the impact on jobs? With AI already affecting employment, does decentralization just add to that concern?
It's a valid point. As automation increases, decentralized systems take on more roles, technologies get more sophisticated, a lot of tasks that humans do will get automated. And that could lead to job displacement for sure in certain areas. But it's also important to keep in mind it can create new opportunities too, in fields like software development, cybersecurity, data analysis.
So there is no simple answer. It sounds like we just need to be ready for an adaptable workforce that, embraces learning new things.
Exactly. The key is to keep learning and develop those skills that are going to be in demand in this new technological landscape.
This conversation has been super helpful, but let's go back to the basics. I feel like a lot of people, myself included, are nodding along pretending to understand what Bitcoin really is.
Yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming. Let's break it down and take a look at how blockchain works, starting with decentralization and cryptographic hash functions. Those are the real magic behind it all.
All right, hash functions. They sound pretty complicated. Can you explain them in a way I can visualize?
Sure. Think of a simple hash function like dividing numbers by 5 and looking at the remainder. For example, 10 divided by 5 has no remainder, so its hash is 0. 11 divided by 5 has a remainder of 1, so its hash is 1. Each input has a unique output.
Okay, I get it now. Each input creates its own unique result. But simple division seems a bit too basic for something as complex as blockchain, right?
You're right. Blockchain uses something much stronger, cryptographic hash functions.
Cryptographic? That sounds serious.
It is. These functions have some impressive properties. For example, it's virtually impossible to get two different inputs with the same hash.
So no chance of a mix-up?
Nope. Each piece of data gets a unique identifier, kind of like a digital fingerprint. And if even a tiny change happens to the input, the output changes completely. This is called the avalanche effect.
So even the smallest change turns everything upside down, like an ultra-sensitive alarm for data.
Exactly. That's the power of blockchain. Cryptographic hashes make the system unbreakable and tamper-proof, which is how blockchain stays secure and immutable.
Okay, now I see why hash functions are so important. But how does all of this work with actual transactions?
Great question. Imagine a network of computers called nodes. Each one has a copy of the blockchain, like a shared ledger of every transaction.
So it's like a digital record book?
Exactly. When you send a digital transaction, it gets broadcasted to all the nodes on the network.
All right, so that's how transactions get shared. What happens after that?
Well, once the transaction is broadcasted, the nodes validate it using cryptographic methods, and once it's verified, it's added to the blockchain. The beauty of this system is that no single entity has control, and the data is protected by these hash functions.
It's not a private exchange? Everyone can see what's going on.
Not exactly everyone, but the details are visible within the network. Transparency is key to blockchain's security.
So it's more like a public record than a private conversation.
Exactly. Specialized computers on the network verify transactions and bundle them into a new block of data.
And that block gets added to the existing chain, like a new link.
Yes, and each new block includes the hash of the previous one, creating an unbreakable link between them.
So every block is permanently tied to the one before it.
That's right. Each new block gets its own unique hash, which is broadcast across the network.
So all computers update their copies of the ledger?
Exactly. The chain grows with each block, and any changes anywhere in the chain are instantly detectable.
That's pretty impressive. But what's the big deal? Why go through all this effort?
A major benefit is that it removes the need for a central authority like a bank to manage things.
Because everyone has a copy of the ledger.
Right? No single point of failure or control. That's decentralization.
So if one computer crashes, the whole system keeps running.
Exactly. And it's incredibly difficult to manipulate the system. The cryptographic hash functions make any tampering obvious.
I see the security benefits now. Any other advantages?
Yes, transparency is another big one. Since everyone can see the transaction history, it reduces the risk of fraud or errors.
So it's a super secure and transparent system, but there must be some drawbacks too.
You're right. Verifying all transactions and generating those cryptographic hash functions requires a lot of computing power.
So as the blockchain grows, the energy consumption increases too.
It can become a concern.
A trade-off then. Amazing security and transparency, but at a cost.
Exactly.
Are there real-world examples of blockchain in action, or is this all still theoretical?
It's already happening. One widely used blockchain infrastructure is Hyperledger.
Hyperledger, tell me more.
It was founded by the Linux Foundation, with major companies like IBM and Digital Asset involved. It's being used in various industries today.
Wow, so this isn't just some futuristic idea. It's already being implemented.
Absolutely. Blockchain is making waves in finance, supply chain management, and more.
This is blowing my mind. So we've gone from basic hash functions to understanding how cryptographic hash functions make blockchain secure, enabling decentralized and transparent transactions.
It's a lot to take in.
But I'm starting to see the potential. It's pretty remarkable. What does this mean for the average person? How does this technology actually impact our lives? I mean, blockchain is secure, transparent, and being used in the real world. But will it affect our everyday lives? Is it more behind the scenes?
You might be surprised. Think about how you manage your online identity now. It's a mess of passwords and personal info across different platforms.
Don't even get me started on passwords. It's a mental juggling act.
Blockchain could solve that by providing a secure, unified way to manage all your data.
So, one digital ID to rule them all?
Exactly. Imagine having full control over your data, deciding who gets access to what.
That would be a game changer. But beyond making our digital lives easier, are there any bigger societal implications?
Definitely. For instance, voting systems. Blockchain could make elections more secure and transparent, reduce the risk of fraud.
That's something everyone could get behind. So blockchain isn't just about digital money, it could impact democracy and governance.
It's about decentralizing power and rethinking trust. Imagine a world without relying on intermediaries to handle data or manage interactions.
Like cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. Blockchain can give individuals more control over their digital lives.
That's empowering. But could blockchain be misused? Could it fall into the wrong hands?
That's a valid concern. Like any tool, blockchain can be used for good or bad, so we need to be mindful of its potential for misuse.
So while it might make traditional fraud harder, new types of cybercrime could emerge. It's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. We need to stay vigilant about security and create safeguards to prevent exploitation.
What about the ethical implications? Could decentralization create new forms of inequality?
Correct. We must ensure blockchain is accessible to everyone and doesn't worsen social divides.
So it's not just about the technology, but how it's implemented and governed.
Precisely.
We need to think about the broader societal impact and ensure everyone benefits, not just a select few.
Couldn't agree more.
It's not just about the tech, we need to consider the bigger issues.
Absolutely. Open conversations about the ethical, social, and political implications are essential, and we need to develop responsible frameworks.
I'm glad we're talking about this. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, but we must consider all sides.
Exactly. We should approach blockchain with enthusiasm, but also critical thinking, recognizing its potential while acknowledging its challenges.
So what's the next step in this journey? What does the future hold?
The exciting part is we're still in the early stages. There's so much room for innovation.
It's a bit overwhelming, to be honest. There's so much to learn. How do you suggest getting started?
Start with the fundamentals, as we've covered, and then dive deeper into areas that interest you.
So, breaking it down into smaller chunks.
Exactly. Don't hesitate to experiment. There are many online resources, tutorials, and blockchain communities where you can learn and connect.
Great advice. It's reassuring to know there are resources available, so we don't have to figure it all out alone. This has definitely sparked my curiosity to learn more.
That's what we love to hear. The world of blockchain is full of possibilities, and we encourage you to get involved.
Absolutely. Not to jump topics, but at the beginning you mentioned something about smart contracts. What exactly are they?
They sound futuristic, right?
Yeah, very sci-fi.
Well, they're not sentient robots, but they're self-executing digital agreements. They're written in code and stored on a blockchain.
So instead of a traditional paper contract, it's a digital agreement written in code?
Exactly.
How does that work in practice, though?
Think of it like a vending machine. You put in your digital input, like a payment, and if it meets the contract's conditions, you get what you're promised, whether it's a digital asset or a real-world task. For example, in a rental agreement, if rent is due on the 1st, the smart contract will automatically transfer the funds on that day. It removes any ambiguity.
So no room for loopholes.
Exactly. Everything is defined in code, leaving no room for interpretation or disputes. It builds trust between parties.
I like that.
And this is where blockchain comes in. These contracts aren't just sitting on a single computer. They're stored across a distributed ledger, meaning multiple computers hold copies of the contract.
So, no one can just change the file on their own computer?
Exactly. The distributed nature of blockchain ensures transparency because anyone with access to the blockchain can verify the contract's execution. And because of cryptographic hashing, each block is linked to the previous one, making it nearly impossible to alter a contract retroactively.
It sounds super secure. But what happens if there's a mistake in the code? People make mistakes.
That's a good point. This leads to the concept of immutability, which means once a smart contract is added to the blockchain, it's there permanently. While this ensures trust and security, it also means errors can have significant consequences.
Like launching a rocket. Once it's in the air, you can't call it back.
Exactly.
So, there's a story about an artist and a lot of money related to this, right?
Yes, Micah Johnson auctioned off digital art using a smart contract and raised $34 million. However, there was a software bug in the contract, and because of the immutable nature of blockchain, the funds were frozen and inaccessible.
That's a strong argument for testing code thoroughly. So while there are risks, the benefits are huge.
Definitely.
Dr. Agarwal talks about using smart contracts to combat counterfeit drugs and redefine digital ownership with NFTs. Let's dive into those.
Sure, counterfeit drugs are a major global issue. How can smart contracts help?
The pharmaceutical industry requires transparency and trust. Smart contracts and blockchain can create a secure, transparent supply chain for drugs.
Exactly. Every transaction would be recorded on a digital ledger, with each step of a drug's journey documented and verifiable. This makes it harder for counterfeit drugs to infiltrate the supply chain, as tampering would be immediately detectable.
That makes sense from a logistics perspective, but how would the average person benefit?
It could be as simple as scanning a QR code on the packaging. That code would link to the drug's unique identifier on the blockchain, showing its entire journey from manufacturer to pharmacy.
So you could trace its entire history. That's amazing.
Exactly. And you'd have the assurance that the drug is genuine and hasn't been tampered.
This technology could revolutionize healthcare and other industries.
Smart contracts can be applied in various areas, like supply chain management for food products. By using blockchain and smart contracts, we can track the origin of food, ensure quality and safety, and even support fair trade practices.
That would be huge for people who really want to know where their food comes from.
Exactly. And then there are NFTs, which have generated a lot of buzz. They're unique digital assets verified on a blockchain.
So instead of owning a physical painting, I could own a unique digital version.
Yes, and because it's recorded on the blockchain, ownership is transparent and verifiable. Anyone can check the history of ownership and authenticity of that NFT.
It's not just art, right?
Not at all. NFTs can include things like virtual sports cards, electronic music clips, or even virtual real estate.
I love the idea of owning virtual land in a video game. But are there any downsides to this technology?
While the benefits are vast, it's important to acknowledge the limitations and risks. For instance, coding errors in smart contracts can have massive consequences, as we've seen.
And the legal landscape is still evolving.
Yes, the legal status of smart contracts is still being debated, and more clarity is needed to ensure they're legally binding.
So it's not a perfect system yet.
Not yet, but there's a learning curve, and the challenges will be addressed over time.
If smart contracts automate agreements, what happens to the people who normally handle these processes?
It could reduce the need for intermediaries like lawyers, brokers, and escrow agents. It's similar to the Industrial Revolution. Some jobs may be displaced, but new ones will emerge.
Like skilled programmers to write and audit the contracts?
Exactly, plus legal experts and cybersecurity professionals to handle the evolving landscape and ensure security.
It seems like we're on the brink of a major shift in technology. Exciting, but also a little intimidating.
Definitely. It's important to keep the dialogue going and consider both the benefits and the challenges as this technology develops.
So, we've covered the basics, the potential applications, and some challenges. But let's look ahead and imagine what the future might look like as this technology advances.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that.
So instead of jumping through all these hoops to prove ownership, everything is right there on the blockchain.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to digital art.
Right? Things like virtual sports cards, music clips, and even virtual real estate are represented by NFTs. It's fascinating.
It's a great way to empower creators. Musicians, for example, could sell their music directly to fans as NFTs, cutting out the middlemen like record labels and streaming platforms. They'd keep more control and a larger share of the profits.
So they're not getting a tiny fraction of a cent every time someone streams their song?
Exactly. They're actually getting paid fairly.
That's incredible. And this could apply to all kinds of creators, right?
Absolutely. Artists, writers, filmmakers, anyone creating digital content could benefit.
So, we've talked about the positives and potential benefits. What about the challenges?
The benefits are huge, but we do need to be cautious. One challenge is the risk of coding errors, as we've seen. We also have to consider the evolving legal and regulatory landscape.
Because there aren't really laws in place yet.
Right? The legal status of smart contracts is still unclear, so we need more clarity on their enforceability.
So, we're in the wild west of smart contracts right now.
In a way, but it's an exciting time.
Definitely. But it also brings up another point. What happens to the people who typically handle these agreements? If everything's automated, will they be replaced?
It could reduce the need for intermediaries like lawyers, brokers, and escrow agents. However, as with any new technology, some jobs will evolve. New roles will emerge as well.
Like programmers, legal experts, and cybersecurity professionals.
Exactly. These roles are essential to writing, auditing, and securing these smart contracts.
So it's not that jobs are disappearing, but rather changing.
Right. We're at a pivotal moment, on the cusp of a major shift, but we don't yet know what the long-term impacts will be.
That's why ongoing discussions are so important, to navigate the benefits and challenges of this transformative technology.
Absolutely. The world of smart contracts is vast and constantly evolving.
So what could the world look like as this technology develops?
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities. Smart contracts could impact many aspects of our lives.
For sure. Finance seems like one area ripe for transformation. What could that look like with smart contracts?
Imagine a world where financial transactions, like loans, insurance, or stock trades, are automated through smart contracts. They could be executed seamlessly without traditional intermediaries.
So no more weeks of waiting and tons of paperwork?
Exactly. Financial services could be more efficient, transparent, and accessible, benefiting both businesses and individuals.
That would be huge. And what about supply chains?
With smart contracts and blockchain, we could track products from their origin to the consumer, ensuring transparency and accountability at every step.
So if I buy a shirt, I could scan a code and see where the cotton came from and how it reached the store.
Exactly. And that would be huge for food safety and quality control as well.
But beyond everyday things, what about the societal impact of smart contracts?
Governance and voting systems are an interesting area. Imagine secure, transparent elections powered by blockchain, where every vote is immutably recorded, ensuring no manipulation or fraud.
No more hanging chads.
Exactly. It could strengthen democratic processes and increase trust in election results.
And then there's identity management.
Imagine securely managing your own digital identity on a blockchain. You'd control what information you share with institutions or individuals. No more carrying around IDs or cards.
That sounds futuristic, but it seems possible as the technology advances.
Yes, these applications are within reach as technology continues to develop.
As we wrap up, what are some key takeaways?
Smart contracts aren't just a tech innovation. They represent a shift in how we think about agreements, trust, and transparency.
So it's not just about speeding things up?
Right? It's about creating a more equitable and accountable system for everyone. We need to consider the ethical, legal, and social implications of this technology.
Because technology is a tool, and it's up to us to decide how to use it.
Exactly.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. We've covered some fascinating ground, from the applications of AI for enhancing blockchains to the advantages of a decentralized system for financial transactions, and of course, the basics of blockchain architecture. We also explored smart contracts and discussed two significant applications for blockchains.
It's been a great conversation. We've really scratched the surface on how AI and blockchain can work together to improve transparency, efficiency, and security in various industries.
Absolutely. And if you're as excited as we are about the future of these technologies, you won't want to miss our next episode. We'll be diving into how combining blockchains and AI is extremely beneficial, exploring the integration of blockchain, IoT, and AI, and touching on crypto coins and non-fungible tokens.
Trust me, you're going to want to tune in for that one. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.